Hyde is apparently going away for a very, very long time. Now, when I see this headline, well, I've kind of got more questions than I really do answers. When this trial was going on, was that earlier this year or was that the end of last year? I don't quite recall, but I would really wish I would have paid more attention to it because, well, it had all the hallmarks of something that could have been salacious. You know, you got a quasi-celebrity, sort of, and I understand that, you know, that 70's show hadn't really been on the air in a very long time. It was something that I watched with some regularity, even though I did fall off like most people did in the last season, which was absolute trash. But for the most part, man, given the subject matter and just my general skepticism whenever it comes to these claims, I was fully anticipating watching a little bit more of it, but I guess what else was going on at the same time? Never got around to it. My mistake on that one, because now we're seeing this big old sentence getting handed down today, and I gotta wonder about a whole host of things. So, okay, that 70's show actor, Danny Masterson, sentenced to 30 years in prison for two grapes that happened in the early 2000s, 2001, 2003, I think are the dates, but we'll obviously get clarification on that. And now they're just going to trial on this stuff. And I think COVID ended up, you know, shifting some stuff around, especially where the trial was taking place. Everything got pushed off for a couple of years. But still, you wait for the guts of 2 decades in order to come forward with your accusations. Very interesting. And yeah, that's 30-year sentence, and you compare and contrast that with somebody in New York, a similar type of district, gets 180 days in jail for graping a 4 and a 9-year-old. Yeah, I've got questions. I know a little bit about the case. Like I said, I really wish I would have had more information. Probably I will in going into the future, figuring out more of the details on this to see if there's any validity to it. Because again, I have a blanket stance when it comes to people doing activities like this. If you do the crime, don't even bother populating a cot space. I would just much rather these detestable individuals, well, let's just say you need to repair the flag that is hanging out on a pole outside of the place of your business. You know, you can go ahead and replace it for the time being while you're stitching it up or going out and buying a new flag in the interim. You could just go ahead and take care of your problems like that. But given this lofty sentence and everything surrounding this, I got questions, man. And if this is somebody who is also so tied up in one of the most powerful quote-unquote cults that are out there, why was he the one that ended up slipping through? It's weird. It's very strange. That 70's show star, Danny Masterson, was sentenced to 30 years in prison Thursday for graping 2 women at the height of his celebrity 2 decades ago. So I see that. Okay, and then with all of the other times that I talk about subjects just like this, chicks coming out of the woodworks in order to accuse somebody, either not giving concrete times or it being so far in the past that it makes no sense why you'd hold on to all of that stuff until somebody's, you know, trying to get a career comeback going. Like, it's very sketchy, man. It's always going to be sketchy to me. Masterson, 47, who was found guilty of graping victims Jen B. and N. Trout in his Hollywood area home back in 2003. What was that, season 4 or 5? Like, right at the peak of that 70's show. You're telling me Hyde, like the number, 4 or 5 character, depending on where you want to put Mila Kunis's character. That's the only one that I can't remember, because you got Eric was Topher Grace, Donna Pinciotti was Laura Prepon, you had Fez, Wilmer Vanderama. I'm probably mispronouncing that name, but he's a foreign exchange student. What do you expect? Now what else? Ashton Kutcher, Eric Kelso. And it's funny, because I did another video, the thing has been released so far, about Ashton Kutcher's, you know, seemingly righteous crusade going against some of the more heinous people in Hollywood, and no mention of somebody who allegedly did some funny stuff while you guys were palling around on set. Like I said, man, if he did it, okay, a just sentence. Actually, I would go a step further, but questions. So yes, while the sentence was being handed down, he remained silent in court as he was sentenced to 15 years for each count, which will be served consecutively. So yeah, he's going to end up going away for 15 years, right? And he could also get, you know, time served, because is probably going to be in California State Pen But even still, oh, it's going to be a tough time because he might end up being a person of a certain notoriety, ending up in, solitary confinement for his protection. So yeah, those are going to be a hard 7 to 10 years. One way or another, you will have to come to terms with your prior actions and their consequences. Los Angeles County Superior Court Judge Charlene Olmedo, sure, told Masterson, got a female judge in California. Again, red flags. N. Trout, and she's not even using her name. Interesting. Slammed the actor as a violent man, but said she forgave him and hopes he'll improve in prison. Interesting. I forgave him about something that happened 20 years ago, and I kept it under my cap for this long. What the? You relish in hurting women. It's your addiction. That's why only two maybe came forward. But again, what's your proof on this other than she cried a lot? It is it is without question your favorite thing to do. Like, how old did you know him? Not well enough to use your own name, but whatever. She read in her victim impact statement before the sentencing, life is precious, fragile, find your heart, learn something. Oh my god, I'm not going to be proselytized to by this bitch. Jen B, meanwhile, used her time to reiterate that there's no conspiracy to take down Masterson or the Church of Scientology. Really does kind of seem like that, man, because even back in the day, it was seen as a very, very powerful institution, but it has since fell off. I don't know why. It seems to be their biggest star. Tom Cruise is doing fairly well. Nobody really talks about it anymore. It's odd. Prosecutors allege that Masterson used his celebrity and prominence in the Church of Scientology, where his victims were also members. Okay, another one of these sob stories. Oh, help, it was a cult. What are we doing? To skirt the law and avoid accountability. Sorry, Leah's not behind this. Jen B said, referring to actress, Leah Remini, former member of the church who has become an outspoken critic. Where, I remember listening to that appearance on Joe Rogan where she went in detail, and then I went back and listened not that long ago, within the past year or so, and it's just a whole bunch of, it was really bad, and I had a choice to leave, but I didn't. But it was a lot of accountability shifting. So regardless of whatever book you pray to, women, well, at the end of the day, are still going to be women. The victims testified that they were given drinks by Masterson that made them pass out. And he proceeded to violently them. Interesting. If you were passed out, how did he do that? And just you two specifically? Okay. Prosecutors said N. Trout was graped so viciously that she threw up in her mouth and begged Masterson to at least use a condom. All right. When the women reported Masterson to Scientology officials, they were told they were not graped and they were put through an ethics program. Okay. So do you have any, proof of this stuff? Because again, he ended up getting 30 years. I'm just not seeing a whole lot of evidence in so much as I went through this horrible situation. Horrible if true, but since you are the accuser in this situation, the burden of proof is kind of on you. They told the court the Scientology officials also warned them not to report the crime because Masterson was such a high-ranking member of the church. Outside of this court case, maybe the hierarchy is different and the closer you get to the church. But of all the big names that were associated to the Church of Scientology, Tom Cruise, John Travolta, I think Will Smith was all tangled up in this stuff. But if that's the case, okay. Sexual degeneracy, I guess, does kind of run in those circles. But okay. But of all the people that you're going to go to back in 2003... why would you go to the church if you thought that the church was compromised? See, this is interesting. Although a jury found Masterson guilty of 2 counts of rape following an initial deadlocked vote, the panel could not reach a unanimous verdict on the 3rd count, alleging Masterson also assaulted his longtime girlfriend, Christina Bixler. Interesting. That's the one that they couldn't find proof on. And it's like, that one, you should have pictures or stuff like that, but okay. I guess maybe that was just a bridge too far. Masterson has denied any wrongdoing, but did not testify in court because, again, what would you end up saying? I didn't do it. Well, we have 2 crying women who said that you did do it. Your silence speaks volumes, Mr. Masterson. Nor did his lawyers call any witnesses to the stand. Yeah, because who are you going to call? So yeah, it seems, man, it really does seem shady. Instead, the defense argued that the sexual acts were consensual and accused the women of coordinating stories to discredit the former Hollywood star. Yeah. Masterson was never charged with any counts of drugging, and there was no toxicology evidence to back up the women's story. And because we don't know the names of these women, don't know if they're coordinating behind the scenes, like you could see with the Andrew Tate type situation, and this is the kind of clown shoes prosecution that you might be seeing over in Romania. And we already know the backstory of at least 2 of the 6 accusers that are out there. Following the sentencing hearing, a defense attorney, Sean Hawley, told reporters outside the courthouse that she was filing an appeal. Sean, spelled like that, that's a chick? Interesting. For the past several months, a team of the top appellate lawyers in the country have been reviewing transcripts of the trial. They have identified a number of significant evidentiary and constitutional issues, which they will address in briefs to both the state and federal appellate courts. The errors which occurred in this case are substantial and unfortunately led to verdicts that are not supported by the evidence. Yeah, and as far as I know, and again, I'd have to brush up on the trial itself, and even in this recap, there's no proof. They went to the Church of Scientology, ended up going through an ethics gimmick. It's like, well, okay, could you verify that with anybody that's there? Oh, they wouldn't testify because they're so entrenched in the church. Okay, well, why didn't you go? If you were unsatisfied with the solution that the church provided you, you didn't want to go to the police. Oh, no, we couldn't do that because he's such a high standing in the church. Well, if they're putting you through this whole runaround and you're not finding an amicable solution to your problems, why aren't you stepping outside of the confines of this? Oh, we were trapped and brainwashed. Oh, okay, cool. So women at the same time are also kept pets that can't be responsible for their own actions. And then at the same time, they're independent boss babes that can just go ahead and seemingly accuse a guy, sans evidence, and send him away for about 15 years in state pen. Interesting. Very interesting. Church of Scientology also issued a statement labeling the women's testimony as uniformly false. The church has no policy prohibiting or discouraging members from reporting criminal conduct of anyone, Scientologist or not, to law enforcement, the statement said. Yeah, like I said at the outset, I really wished I would have paid more attention to this trial. I think it was televised. Maybe it was, maybe it wasn't. I'll have to run it back at some point in time. But the way that the media is reporting on this, it just, just with a blank stare on their face, just going forward, women most affected. We'll just go ahead and run with that because Danny Masterson's wife, Bijou Phillips, is a shell of her former self and feels like she's mourning the death of that 70's show star faces 30 years to life in prison for graping 2 women. Good wife for sticking by her husband, by the way. But reporting this as a guy ends up losing the better part of 2 decades, potentially, of his life, him ending up spending the rest of his 40s, all of his 50s in jail, all because 2 women, and apparently a third, making some strange accusations. I don't know how you all bundle all of those crimes together, but that's incredibly interesting as well. But yo, I'll guarantee this right now. I'll put it down on the record. There's an appeal that goes through and there's another trial that ends up taking place. It's an incredibly long shot and it's going to take a long time in order for that to come true. This isn't a Jussie Smollett type situation where you end up lodging an appeal and then it gets taken up and, well, there's no real follow through. He was sentenced to 150 days in jail and he spent, what, like a day behind bars? No, this is going to be a long drawn out process and I'll be keeping my eye on it because to say I'm sold, ooh, not really. Because I remember hearing about the jury shenanigans, a bunch of other stuff as well, and just the simple lack of evidence, man. Not convinced. Definitely not convinced yet. There. And then also Southern California and believe all women in full effect. Yeah, not convinced. Not convinced at all. So with all that said, thank you all very much for the gift of your time. I've been Don Consuelo. I want you to follow your gut and get after it. Take care, everyone.